So we have John Coggin, we have Ed, we have Jim Steele going to be connected very shortly, and Dick Coates very shortly. I've tried to reach Dan in the past, and I have not been able to reach him.
Mute. Okay, it's all you. Can you hear us, gentlemen?
I hear you.
All right, Jim is going to be there shortly.
Okay. Next. Okay, Dick, I see you. There you are. Oh, Dick's connecting at the moment. How you doing, Jim? Good morning. Is your audio on, Jim? We need to get a hold of somebody to set up Jim's audio. Okay. Amy, we don't have any audio on Jim Steele.
We only have one phone number.
Hello?
Yeah, is that Dick?
That's Dick, yes, hi.
Okay, good morning, Dick.
Hi.
They're trying to set up the audio for Jim Steele. It'll be, they're working on it at the moment.
Okay,
We have Mr. Coggin on telephone.
okay.
And the only person I haven't been able to reach was Dan Hughes. So I tried a couple of times to reach him and left messages for him to give me a call.
Huh.
So I don't know what happened to Dan.
Robert, I rebooted and got in, but I'm waiting. Amy's got to let me in.
Oh, okay. Ed, when we're ready to start, I guess you would run the meeting since Dan's not here.
Yep.
If that's all right. But we'll wait a few more minutes till we get John and Jim Steele.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I'm in. You just can't see me, but I'm in, so we're fine. I can see you guys. You don't need to see me.
And what about Jim?
It looks like they're still working on Jim's computer at the moment, from what I can see.
Is he home?
He's here in town hall, and they set him up a laptop rather than send him back home.
Oh,
We can connect him up here. I had him on video, but I didn't have him on audio.
where are you, Robert?
I'm here at town hall.
You're
I'm in my office right now. Yeah.
okay. Best laid plans.
Pardon?
I said best laid plans.
Well, these technical things are all great as long as they work.
Yeah, I had trouble getting in, and I finally typed in the number, and it let me in.
Okay. It's a hit and miss with me sometimes, Dick.
Hello, Ed.
How you doing, Dick?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I just need a haircut, that's all.
So do I.
My wife trimmed me the other day.
So now you know why I don't bother bringing myself on video. I guess a year in the making here is long enough.
There's
Yeah,
a barber at the salon at Santini, Dick, that'll do a haircut, I think, if you call. You
Yeah.
make an appointment.
yeah. Yeah, some are making house calls, I heard. I don't know if that's legal or not.
Gentlemen, I have also two of my staff members listening in. So just so that you're aware of it.
Okay. There you go. All you,
There?
as soon as we get out of here. Can you hear us, gentlemen?
Yeah,
Yes, I hear you. Everybody
Okay.
else hear? Amy?
Is Jim there?
Yes.
There he is.
All right, it's 9:17. Let's call the meeting to order. I think we've got Dick Cody, Jim Steele, John Goggin, myself, Ed Lombard. Dan Hughes is absent for the time being. Since I'm the vice chairman, I want to convene the meeting and call to order. I guess the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the 2019 minutes. I guess we're going to dispense with the pledge since the flag isn't here. But I think the minutes have been circulated. I've read them. I presume others have. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
so moved by Cody.
Second by Steele.
Okay, the July 29, 2019 minutes have been moved for approval and seconded. Is there a discussion? I have a couple of just substantive questions on the minutes. I may as well get them now. Somewhere in there it says that I questioned the line item for reserves in the budget, and Director Lang will follow up with audit committee with me on that question.
Okay, the reserves are now reflected in the audit report itself. And I can show you that when we get to that the audit report itself, Mr. Lombard. But yeah, we had them broken out previously, but because of the way the reports summarized everything, you didn't see it. So now we have it broken out, and you see it now in the audit report too.
I think I saw it in the audit report. The question I raised during this meeting was whether or not it was in the budget, identified in the budget with the line items in the reserves in the budget. That was the question.
Yes, sir. There's a line in the audit report that shows how much funds.
Not the audit report, Robert. The budget.
The budget. Okay. On the budget side, what would be reflected there would be anytime we were using any of those reserves to fund any items in the budget itself. If they were not using any of those funds, then they are not in the budget.
The question is there an item called reserves in the budget? And is there a list of what those reserves would entail in the budgeted program?
Not as far as the budget itself. I have to look at the report to see if I included a page that I presented to the council to let them know how much money we had in the reserves identified. But since if the reserves are not being used for a particular expenditure, they would not be reflected in the budget.
I guess I'm a little surprised that at least the budget item for reserves is not reflected in the budget, whether or not it's funded or not. It ought to be shown as reserves, zero funded perhaps, or it ought to be shown as budgeted reserves together with the line items that comprise whatever is in budget reserves. Wouldn't it be a good idea to have at least the reserves reflected in the budget council is approving for the fiscal year?
It's definitely something we can add. There's nothing to prevent us from doing it. My practice has been in the past, all resources available to be used when they're available would be, if the council wanted to use them, we would use them. On the add-on list, we did show how much of the reserves were being allocated towards the budget. And that's what we knew at that time as far as the funds that were not assigned to a particular purpose. You may remember Mr. Steele recommended several years ago to identify certain reserves to be maintained at all times. And those reserves have been, and they are reflected in the audit report as a true reserve of those funds. So they won't be used just arbitrarily, except for the purpose they were intended to. Then there's a line item for unassigned. Well, at the time I did the budget for 2020, I estimated that we would have at least $250,000 that could be used to, if the town council wanted to use it for budgetary purposes. And we also used what remaining balances were in the unassigned at the time for 2020. So we did show how much was available based on our estimates.
Well, my strong recommendation would be in future budgets, there ought to be an item for reserves, and whatever amount is available in those reserves or is being funded in that budget proposal ought to be reflected in that line item in the budget. That's my recommendation.
Okay, we show available sources in the overall, but we don't present them in the budget as a line item unless they're going to be used for the purpose identified by council. Because that's what a budget is to take your resources and match it to a service that's going to be used. Otherwise, it's not reflected. You take, for instance, the reserves for emergencies, which is like a 4 months operating cost. And that's for emergency reserves. Should something ever happen, that would be catastrophic. We also have a reserve for the emergencies, which would be something like a hurricane specifically. And then we have reserves for insurance reserves. We have reserves for personnel growth, things of that nature. And those are specifically set aside to meet those obligations should they ever be needed. And then we have the reserves called unassigned, which means those are free for the council to consider to be used for any purpose they wish. And that's what we would present to the council for consideration during the budget process.
Well, I don't know, maybe you need an addendum to the budget or something, but I'd still like to understand. I'd like to be able to look at a budget document. I think I know a little bit about budgeting too. I've done a few in the past. I've reviewed a lot of them, but I'd like to see something in the budget which reflects, maybe as an addendum, whatever constitutes the reserves, whether or not the council intends to use them or not. And that's just my suggestion. We've heard the approval has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of the 2019 audit report to be submitted to town council on May 5. And we've all been sent copies of the audit. So this isn't a draft, this is the final audit, right, Robert?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Sir.
All right, well, there it is. Anybody have anything to say about the 2019 audit?
I just have a couple of questions, and I need to get to the page.
I also have a couple questions. Why don't we kind of go in order of the budget so we don't start with one person's questions and go all the way through and then have to go back and start all over again?
That's fine.
The question?
Like, which page is your first question?
It's going to be in the footnote, so it's going to be beyond the statements.
Okay.
Here's what hold on a second. I had these written down and I lost my sheet. How are the footnotes?
They should be in the starting at page 25.
Yeah, okay. Bear with me for just a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Note number 7, page 36.
Okay, I'm heading there.
There's a whole list of the state revolving fund loan.
Yes.
It adds up to 24 million.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't find that in a balance sheet anywhere. But where's that debt shown? I went through the governmental and the non-governmental balance sheet, but I don't see a debt that large.
No.
And the Stormwater Fund only has like a $7 million debt showing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just looking for where this amount of debt is included in the financial statements, unless I'm missing something.
It would be in the water fund and the stormwater fund.
All right.
And
I printed those out. Let me look.
Look at page 20.
20? Okay. Okay, I see it. I see it now. 15 in the water fund,
and 16 too in stormwater.
and then stormwater. Okay, I missed
Yes.
that. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
I have another question, but I'll wait till the end. It has to do with the management report. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I had a question on page 5.
Okay, I'm on my way. Let me see.
It'd be the second paragraph.
Second bullet.
Okay, second bullet. Yeah.
Yep. Government activities, unrestricted net position increased by 1,606,000. I couldn't get that to balance back.
It should be. 1 second. Just give me one moment, please.
If you look at page 4, it's got government activities, and down at the bottom, it's got unrestricted. And the difference there is like $1.4 million. And this shows $1.6 million. It's not critical. It just didn't seem to balance.
Yeah. Tim, I'll definitely get an answer for you on that because everything had tied out specifically. And give me one moment. I may have to get with the auditors to see what values went into that. It usually just off the top, just like you said, it normally be the difference between last year and this year. But there's another factor involved. I have to chase it down.
Okay.
Let me get you an answer, and when I get the answer, I'll send it to everyone so they know that you got the answer to the question on the net change.
Okay. Then on page 14.
Okay.
It's referring to the gas tax fund.
Okay.
I see the transfer in for 100,000 is for that $500,000 they use in the gas tax fund when they bought town hall. And I think the last payment is coming up October 1st or sometime soon. So that'll be on. The transfers out of 425,000.
Yes, sir.
Then if you look at page 21, the Stormwater Fund, it's got transfers in of 450,000. Was there a 25,000 more transferred into the Stormwater Fund somewhere else? So I thought all the transfers from the gas tax fund went to the Stormwater Fund.
Hmm.
So Jim, is your question, where's the extra 25,000 come from?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
What's the $25,000 difference?
Must have been another transfer from somewhere else.
Yeah, it looks like there's a transfer into stormwater, 25,000 from somewhere else. Not a biggie, it just got my curiosity. John, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you just don't have a picture. All right.
Right, no, for some reason video's not working, but that's actually doing you guys a favor.
Okay. Thank you.
From a general fund. Okay.
Do we know why?
Transfer. I'm trying to think what the amount was, but it's a.
Well, why don't we proceed here? Jim, that sounds like a detail that Robert's going to have to insert some.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Then on page 20, proprietary funds, it's got under assets, due from other governments. It's got the water fund, 3.5 million, and the stormwater, 2.8 million. Is that from the state revolving loan fund or Lee County, or what is that?
That due from other governments, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Due from other governments, yes.
Would that be funding from the revolving fund, Robert?
I don't see Robert on here.
He's looking for that 25,000, Jim.
Oh,
Gentlemen, can you hear me?
You need to help him out.
Can you hear me?
yes,
This is staff member Andre.
yes.
Okay. Yes, Robert lost the connection.
Okay.
I do have an answer, although I'm not sure if he wants me to answer that question.
Give us an answer.
$25,000. The $25,000 you were looking at was a transfer in from the general fund.
From the general fund.
So from the
Okay.
25,000 from the cash tax, 25 is from the general fund.
Okay.
The other question,
Thank you.
yeah, the other question, yep, the other question you had about the proprietary funds on page 20.
Yes.
Other governments that consist mostly both of the water fund and the stormwater funds of SRF loan payments that we expect in the next fiscal year. We were forced by the auditors, or forced, maybe not the right word, but they felt it appropriate that even though those payments had not been received yet in fiscal 2019, that the eligible expenses we had incurred and that were reimbursable under the SRF loan agreement should be recorded as a receivable, not as revenue though, because it is of course a loan. So they were added as part of the audit adjustments, and that's why those numbers seem to be rather high. Those were expenses incurred towards the end of the fiscal year 2019. The disbursement requests were either not out at that time or shortly thereafter. And those payments by now have been received, of course, in fiscal year 2020, but they were recorded as a receivable.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So could I just ask real quick, that 25,000 then that went from the general fund to the stormwater, I think it was, to make the 450, that's the same 25,000 we talked about last time, money coming out of the general fund for operating?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I remember anyhow.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I
I'm
believe
not
that.
answering for Robert, but that's what I remember, John.
Thanks.
Then I had a question on page 20 and page 21. On page 20, and this is the Stormwater Fund. It's got capital contributions, 500,000. Then on page 21, it's got proceeds from capital grants and contributions of 249,000. I was wondering what the difference was.
Yes, actually, both of them are grants that we received for stormwater. The 249,000 was actually recorded at the end of the fiscal year 2018 as revenue, but was not actually received in cash until fiscal year 2019. The 500,000 was a grant that we received stormwater for $500,000, and I believe we did receive that within fiscal year 2019.
But wouldn't that show up then on page 21 or on page 22?
Let me see. Well, let me see. I'm not sure if the 500,000, didn't we receive that into 2020?
Okay, gentlemen, I'm back. I got kicked completely off the internet. So sorry about that. We're good. Thank you very much, Brittany. Okay, Mr. Steele, you were about the transfer to the Stormwater Fund, the 400,000.
Yeah, I think we got that question answered by your staff person. Thank you.
Okay, excellent.
We're now pursuing another question of Jim's.
Okay.
And it's on page 21, the Stormwater Fund. Shows a capital contribution of 500,000.
Oh, I'm out of that.
On 21.
Page 21 under Stormwater Fund.
Yes.
3/4 the way down.
Yes, sir.
And then on page 22, under Stormwater Fund, proceeds from capital grants, 249,000. Trying to determine what the difference is.
Well, the 500,000 was a grant that we got for the stormwater.
I knew we got one from the state.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't that show up on page 21?
Yeah, the $500,000 is on 21, just like you said. Now, no. I'm sorry?
The $500,000 is on page 20.
I don't see that.
No,
it's on 21 too.
21.
21.
Okay. Yeah, it's down there with the contribution of the 450 that came in from general and from the gas tags. Then you were saying down on page 22.
Yes.
You were looking for the.
It says cash flows from capital and relating finance activities. It says proceeds from capital grants and contributions, $249,084.
What is that?
That 249 was we had a $250,000 grant also. And this particular, that's what that's to reflect. The $500,000 was another grant. So we had two grants, one for 249 and then one for $500,000.
But wouldn't the $500,000 also show up on page 22?
It's a cash flow.
Yes, I don't disagree. I'm trying to think why it can't be in that particular item.
Because
we haven't awarded it and
Bob, can you hear me?
Yes. Is Andre?
I believe. Yeah, I would have to look it up to confirm this. But I believe what happens here is that on page 21, it is the net position of the or changes in net position of the proprietary fund. It shows 500,000 because there is a change in net position. I believe that is a receivable that was recorded because I believe that $500,000 was received as cash in fiscal 2020. So the receivable was recorded and shows up in the statement of net position or the change in net position. However, the cash was not received, I believe. I have to look it up to make sure that that was until 2020, and that's why it doesn't show up in the cash flow. And the opposite is true for the 249. The $250,000 grant was actually recorded as a receivable in fiscal 18 and shows up in the cash flow in 29.
In 19, yeah.
That makes sense.
There's a timing element on those two items.
Okay.
Right. And those are two different statements. One is almost like a balance sheet and the other one is cash flow.
Yeah.
So the cash flow doesn't show a receivable that hasn't been received yet.
All right.
Thank you, Andre.
On page 37. Under retirement plan,
Yes, sir.
the town started a new retirement plan, Plan 002.
Yes.
And was that effective April 1st, 2019?
Yes, sir. We left the old provider and switched to a new provider. And that's this note is to reflect that we had left Valak and joined Mass Mutual.
Okay.
And it was a whole different agreement and structure than what we had with Valak.
And then you started a new plan for new employees hired after that date.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And that's Plan 2.
I think he's talking
Now, was
about-
this, the change in plan administrators, was that approved by the council?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And then on page 50,
Okay.
Where'd it go?
federal state agency pass-through entity federal state programs. Under federal awards, this is for drinking water state revolving loan fund. These are all state revolving loan funds.
Yes, sir.
And then under water treatment facility, I see the 500,000. Well, that's outfall improvements. The 2,000,006, that's state revolving loan fund.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
Okay.
I think the financial condition of the city or the town is excellent. Good job by you and the council and the town manager.
Thank you very much. Yes, as of September 30th, there has been a lot done to strengthen the city's financial position. And of course, Jim, with great respect, and your insight back in 2016, 17, I believe it was, when you set up the reserves to try to start setting a reserve plateau or value. We have supported that and continue to support that because it's very valuable to have that working capital available for any situation that does arise. So thank you very much for your comments on that, Jim.
Well, thank you.
For insight on helping set that forward.
Any other comments, questions? I do have a couple of comments about the audit. As I was reading the audit, I had to check to see if I was reading last year's audit, because it seemed like they drew the same conclusions. They found the same material weaknesses. This time Malden Jenkins, last time Clifton Larson. Namely, that the financial statement closing process was ineffective in meeting the objectives of making financial reports. It was,
let me, if I may,
the town was unable to close its books and generate year-end reports in a timely manner. In addition, there were adjusting journal entries of over $70 million.
Okay, I don't know if you had a chance to read the responses, but Ed,
the entire,
we had 3 comments this year. We had 9 last year. Some were already were resolved. The 3 that remain is at the close of 2019. We were migrating over to our fixed asset module that we had purchased with the system, but we didn't have time to integrate it in 2018's audit report. So by the time that report got out, we were starting a migration into taking all of our fixed assets and loading them into the new system. Well, the auditors, I scheduled with the auditors to begin their audit in mid-December. Well, we had somebody working on the fixed asset for that transfer, and it would have all been done. However, she left on us and went out of country, and I had to hire another person to come in and pick up that particular role. And when the auditors came in, instead of us being ready with the fixed assets, and the module, that's where our the big dollar amounts of $50 to $60 million was from reclassifying, preparing entries to take the monies out of the ledgers that we had. We were using Excel and put them into the fixed asset module so it could be presented. And in order to do that, we had to make these journal entries. Well, unfortunately, with the greatest respect, I was pushing to try to get the audit out. If you remember last year, we didn't get it out until June 30th. I'm sorry. Yeah, June 30th. I was fighting and I was telling the auditors I wanted to start earlier so I'd make sure we can get it out. Well, little did I know we were going to run into the problem with the fixed assets, and that was the big chunk. That was about almost $60 million of that $70 million worth, and the rest has to do with the debt, recording of the debt, because during 2019 fiscal year, we did a lot of capital work that had to be transitioned into the debt. So you'll see the debt moved up quite a bit from the prior year, with the stormwater now coming on board as a true debt, and some water also. So when you incorporate those and prepare the necessary entries to transfer those out, they were all part of our year-end process, and they got processed and we were doing the processing. The auditors didn't find any of these things. They were things that we were doing. And unfortunately, I did not have those ready by December 16th. Had I waited till the January 15th or January 20th to start the audit, those items would not have been included. But they were things that we were in process of posting, and we were not trying to stop the auditors from going ahead and doing their work. And that's why we had those values reported as such. The second item, like I said, there were 3 findings this year. That was one of them. We've got that all under control now with the module for the fixed asset, now tying into the purchasing process, so that whenever we buy a new asset, it's automatically or is transferred into the fixed asset group, so we can record the capital and the depreciation, et cetera, on those items. We've never had that before. So we'd have addressed that there in, as the close of 2019, but it happened in December, January, that we were finally posted and balanced that fixed asset group. So that's in place now. The second item that they hit me with on the educational issue having to do with investments, and I wanted to talk to the audit committee on this. I did attend the classes that were required to give me the credits. By the time the information got processed to the auditors from the state, validating that the courses that I took do comply with state law, the audit report was already complete. And I told them not to stop the audit process, just go ahead and present it to you all the way that their findings showed at that time, and that I would explain it when we met. But I did not want to hold up the audit for another week or two, just because I know I had complied with that, and I've got the documentation for that, but they didn't have it at that time.
Did you notify the auditors that you had done that, Robert?
Yes, sir, I did. I sent them the documentation of my credit hours. At their review of those credit hours, they did not tie the relationship between the classes I took and the letter of the state requirements. So I called the state, and due to all of the problems with this virus issue, it took a while to finally reach somebody that could answer, and then they submitted the documentation to me, and I forwarded that to the auditors to show that I had met the compliance of the 8 hours credit required. And they said, well, Bob, we've already printed the report. And I said, don't stop it. I said,
Well, okay, I understand.
Okay.
Have they,
Now,
I understand. Did they give you any formal communication that the situation had been corrected and actually had been adhered to, or has this all been informal over telephone?
Most of internet is where I've sent things by email to them to provide the documentation of what I did. They've got my credit hours. They've got the subjects that were.
Did they finally acknowledge that you had met the, after receiving that information, did they finally acknowledge that you had
That's my understanding. They just couldn't change. They can't, since the report's already written and already been.
The report's been written, Robert. I understand that.
Yes.
Behind us now. So you have some assurance from them that they now understand that you met the requirement.
Yes, sir.
And you can put that in the file or maybe attach it to the audit report that you present to council on the whatever day you're going to present.
I'll be glad to. I've got that documentation.
You should do that, Robert.
Okay. Now, what I would like, I know it's not part of the agenda, but I would like you to think about it. We don't really have an investment program.
But we do have a requirement, Robert.
We have a policy.
We have a policy. That's right.
And the state says if you don't have a policy, you don't have to meet the guidelines of going to for this 8 hours. And what I would be requesting the committee to consider is to treat that as a guideline and call it a policy, because we just keep our money in overnight funding, and that's not really an investment structure. We don't go out and bid purchase investments of various types. And I don't think we ever will, to be truthful, because I think we use our money as fast as we get it in for the most part. And I'm just saying that rather than cross this, because there's only 2 people that would go to those classes, that would be myself and the town manager. And the town manager's not going to have time to go take an investment class, so it'd be up to the finance officer.
I think that's a reasonable request. Did I understand you to say that the state doesn't require it if we don't have any investments that meet the criteria? Is that what you said?
If the town does not have a policy to follow, then we're excused from attending those classes.
Yeah, well then I think probably all we need to do is amend that policy to say if required.
Or change the policy to a guideline that you all recommend that if we did any investments, we follow a guideline, but not set it as a policy is what I was.
I think we should
recommending.
take a look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we discussed this a year ago. We had this same discussion because it was a point a year ago. And he said, why do we have a policy when we don't need it? Because we don't make investments. So I think it's a point well taken.
Okay. But I wanted
think
you
the
all
way
to
to-
think.
I was going to say, my recommendation is Robert just writes up what he's been saying to us, writes it up in a formalized request to have the policy changed to a guideline stating these are the conditions that we don't really do investments, that, you know, the cash is overnight, but write that as a justification. Let us look at the language, and then he can take it to council to modify the policy.
Absolutely. Good idea.
Okay, so I'll put it on the next agenda for the meeting that we'll have at that time, so that you all can look at it and add any comments or communication on it, okay?
Yeah, Robert, I think
Any other comments or questions on the audit?
I've got one. I have one more. I noticed we got a secondary report.
Yes.
Is this the first time we've received that kind of report?
Well, what this is, I'm going to say yes to you, Jim. What this is, that was supposed to be the report the auditors would read to the council or to you all to let you know what the condition of the town's financial situation is. And they go through it in a 1, 2, 3, 4.
Narrative, yeah.
Okay. This is their report, kind of summarizing everything, giving you some graphs, etc. They were going to be on, apparently they do, on for this meeting, so they could answer some of the questions that I've answered for you all, and explain what that AD&A is. And that's just the auditor's discussion and analysis to let everybody know what they interpret. So I did not, since they submitted that to me, I wanted you all to see it also. But it's not really part of the audit. The audit is independent of that document.
Okay, and then the follow-up question, why was not Wade Sansbury on the call this morning?
Why were they? I'm sorry?
Why aren't the auditors on this call?
We sent them the same information, and based off of a conversation that I had with Jennifer, she told me it'd either be her or Wade here to be in on the call, but I did not get the call from them. They did not sign in, and they were familiar with. They got the same information you did. I was expecting them to be on the call.
I am very disappointed the auditors weren't on the call.
Yeah.
That's inexcusable, in my opinion.
Can I add a statement to that, Bob? This is Andre speaking.
Yes.
I'm actually aware that the auditor is on in the meeting. I don't know what they're watching, if it's through Zoom or through YouTube, but I did get actually a message from the auditor stating that they are actually in and watching. They also confirmed my previous statement about the $500,000, that it was indeed received after fiscal 19 was closed. So the cash was received in fiscal 2020. And so the answer is yes, they are watching this particular meeting.
Well, they should be part of the meeting.
Part of it, yeah. They're observers, yeah.
Right. Again, I don't know if they have called in through Zoom or if they're watching through YouTube. I don't control the meeting, so I can't see if they might be sitting in what they call the waiting room in Zoom. So you might want to have to check that with Amy Baker to see if they're sitting in the waiting room, because then they might have an opportunity to answer.
And I appreciate that, Andre. Let me call Amy and see if there's a way that the auditors can communicate with you.
It's too late now.
Okay. Well,
Any other questions or comments on the audit?
Well, this is not related to the audit specifically, but to the financial condition of the town through this coronavirus. How is the town, let's say the financial department, handling everything? Are they working from home? Can they work from home? Do they come into the office occasionally? Can you just give us a rundown of how we're controlling our finances during this crisis?
Yes, sir. That's a good question. For the last 3 to 4 weeks, we've been on a Alpha Bravo program, meaning half of the staff would come in 1 week and the other half would come in the next week. And that way, if anyone got sick, we wouldn't be getting everybody sick. So we've been working off of that. And when we were at home, we were working from home to keep things flowing. So the processes have continued. The checks have been processed. The income has been processed as it's coming in. We continue to reconcile the bank accounts. All the things that normally get done are being done by the Alpha and the Bravo team. It's just that we're not all here at the same time. We're back to work as of today. Monday, as of yesterday. So we're here. We're all kind of locked in our offices, trying to keep minimal communications with everybody. Yes, sir. So everything is going good. I will be glad to forward you all 2 documents, if you wish. One would be a combined revenues and expenses for all the funds, so you can see where we are as of March 31. And the other would be a combined balance sheet, which shows each one of the funds and their assets and liabilities as we stand for March 31.
I think that's a really good idea.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll send that to you all in an email shortly. Let me put it all together for you so that you can, and it's summarized rather than put you into a lot of detail. And then as you have inquiries into any of that, we'll be glad to answer.
Robert, I just think I'd like to see something like that routinely. Once a quarter probably would be sufficient, but I think it's good for you to put these financial statements together for us so that we can keep up with what's going on.
Absolutely, and I tell you, it's been, as you know, and I've said it before, we've struggled through the last 2 years, but we do have the tools now to give you what you all have been asking as a basic piece of information. And I think this might meet your needs. If not, again, you can communicate with me. Let me know what additions or adjustments or recognitions you'd like to see. So,
is your staff up to complement now, Robert, or do you have vacancies? What's the situation with the number of staff?
We're full right now. We have a good team that we put together, and I'm very proud of each and every one of them. They have come forward. They're qualified to do what they're doing, and we should not have the problems we've had in the past years. Through your support and city manager's support and the council, we've come through that battle of the transitions. And as everybody knows, Jim, you're new as far as my tenure here. We've only exchanged a few comments here or there, but with the change of the hardware, the network system, and the software systems, we put in about 3 or 4 different software applications, not just in finance, but other places to interface with finance. It's been a battle, but it had to be done. It had to be experienced. And now we're going to start seeing the fruit of all that work. And the things that you all have asked about, we'll provide to you. The audit next year, I will not be pushing start in December. I'll ask to start in January to make sure we have all of our year-end processes in place so we don't have those comments that were there before. But and we had it pretty well locked in this year, but unfortunately that fixed asset group, it just turned me upside down, gentlemen, and I have no excuse other than just tell you what happened.
Well, you know, Robert, there's a saying. I grew up in a construction family. There's a saying in part of the iron workers, the guys that put together the bridges and the decking and so forth. First drop of rain is an act of God. The second drop is your own damn fault. So we've had 2 now, but it sounds like you're going to try and prevent number 3 from happening, and that's good to hear.
So Robert, this is John. One of the things, so we got all these new tools. We've talked in the past about trends, and I'd just like to know what your staff's going to start preparing in reports and analysis for the council coming out of the economic impacts that we're going to have with gas tax, with the tourism development fund, with sales tax, bed tax, the parking. So I think they're going to need a lot of information to make some informed decisions throughout the summer. And I'd just like to know what it is your staff's getting ready to do. Are they prepared to do some of that with all these new tools?
Well, I'm going to say yes to you on some of these analysis and determine what types of things will be needed by the council. The information from TDC and from the state, they're the ones that run the analytical data and the forecasting to let us know what's going on from that area so that we can project using their numbers. From our numbers, we can follow the growth or the changes that are taking place. We know we're going to have a slight dip because of the coronavirus as far as parking, but as far as taxes, the taxes were already processed prior to the coronas, which was great. All of our regular revenues start coming in, should be the same in the latter part of the year as it was in the as it has been in past years. I think if we have any kind of issue of concern will be the month of March, and that on the parking side. Grants are still going to come through to us. Once everybody can go back to work, we'll start seeing a, let's say an adjustment for our permitting system, building permits, because there were several permits that were going to come in just as the virus hit. So everybody's put things on a hold until that is corrected. So we are projecting where we're going to be by the end of the year. We will be, because I've got 6 months in. I have staff that are caught up as opposed to working on the audit for another 2 months. They're working on policies. And that was, if I may just back up 1 minute in the audit report, that was the third comment, was that our investment policy was not current. It had been written in 2014. We're going to have that policy written, and we'll be presenting that to you. I'm sorry. It
was on the wire transfers, right?
Investment policy. It was the wire transfer policy. My apologies. Thank you.
Yep.
And we're going to clean that up and bring it to you, so it'll be an updated status on that particular policy, because that one is an important policy, and we do have the good internal controls before we do anything, but it's not updated in our writing. So now we can address it.
That's good.
Yeah, and I guess, Robert, my point is that you have new council members. We're going to have a significant impact from this. And I just hope that, you're making plans for your staff to be very proactive and giving a good picture and communicating in a way to the council that they have timely information to start making some of these investments and decisions they're making going forward.
Absolutely. I've talked to my staff about getting my reports available earlier in the month. In prior years, when we were having all those difficulties, they were delayed. But now we're going to be getting reports out in the first 10 days of the month and get those out to the council so they can see where we are. And they are more detailed than they were. I personally like that little graphic page. Some people may not. But if you would like to look at numbers and see multiple pages, we'll be providing that detail to them so that it's available.
And your staff's availability to them to help interpret it. As I said, there's 3 new members, and governmental accounting is not the simplest thing to get through.
That's a very good point. And I don't like to talk too much, but if I'm always available to clarify anything on the fund accounting structure, because it is a new animal for a lot of people, and they need that information in order to properly understand what's been presented to them. So I agree with you. Again, they deal with a lot of different things, but if they want me to go into detail and give them a presentation, I'll be more than glad to. It's part of my role.
All right. Anything else?
Just one other thing, and it would be great if you get financial reports on the website.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you very much. They do belong on the webpage, and I'll see that once we present them to the council, I get them on the webpage so that they're one and the same.
Well, I think we're sailing towards adjournment here, but let me I want to raise a question, sort of an extraneous matter, but we talked about it last time. I want to raise it again. In the budget, have you now identified the loan specifically as a loan to the Stormwater Fund from the general fund. I think it's projected at a little over $900,000 that the council directed be loaned to the Stormwater Fund. Is that now shown in the budget, in the approved budget as a loan? Because I've looked in the budget and I don't see it anywhere in there as a loan, but maybe I've missed it.
No, what you'll see, Ed, is that on the budget side will be the transfer of, it was really about $300,000, two to three.
300,000, yeah, I guess that's it.
I think, and that's treated as a transfer to the stormwater, and that money is being expended right in a department called operations. At the close of the year, depends on how much money they spend, would be how much the general fund would have funded them. Okay. And if either the council will tell me they want that full original budget treated as a loan, or whether they only want the amount of money that was actually spent during the operations as a loan, and it'll be booked at the end of the year as such. It'll become a due to and a due from between those two.
It's only a question of the amount, but so in the meantime, you continue to identify as a transfer as opposed to a loan.
Well, it is, because that's the mannerism that the financials for fund accounting reports. It's got to show as income or expense to the individual funds. But when we close the end of the year, we would then post it as a true due to, due from.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is Andre speaking. Behind the scenes, I'm in contact with the partner in charge of the auditors. If the audit committee wants them to, they would be more than happy to give a comment. In the meantime, they have dialed in to Zoom, and they're sitting in the waiting room. So if you want to give them an opportunity to make any comments, or if you have any questions, they are available, provided Amy lets them in. So they are in the waiting room in Zoom.
Well, it's a little beyond, it's a little past due right now, but anybody want to take advantage of that?
It's too late.
Okay, if not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made to adjourn and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, Ed, one last thing. If you could send the minutes that you have,
Yeah.
A copy to show that it was approved by the council, by the board here.
What do you want me to do, Robert?
Sign the back on the minutes for October. On the back, they have to be signed by the chair.
Yeah.
If you could be so kind to do that, and then just send it to me or email it, I'll
do it.
I'll post it with the
sign it
minutes.
and scan it and send it to you, Robert.
That'll work great. Okay.
By the way, before we finish this motion, when you go to council on the, what is it, the 4th, 5th?
The 5th, yes, sir.
Are you going to have Dan with you?
I'm going to say yes. I assume he would be, or yourself, either one.
Well, you coordinate with Dan on that. I'd prefer it be Dan, but just coordinate with Dan on that.
Ed, this is Jim. Don't we have to accept the audit formally?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess we have to defer that adjournment. That's probably something we ought to do, Jim. You're exactly right. So
I move we accept the audit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. The motion's been made. All those who approve say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so let's proceed with the motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is now adjourned.
Gentlemen, thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Robert.
Oh, we need to thank you.